Thank you for joining me today. Here we have author Rowan Croft.
Said I'm Rowan. Hello.
Today we're going to talk about the Girlfriend Agreement book.
Literally, when COVID kicked off, that I first
Mm,
started writing it, and I kind of put it to the side for a few years because I had other priorities between work, and I write under another pen name. So I had a series I was sort of halfway through with my co-author at that point. But it's a story that was always sort of I needed to tell it.
yeah.
It came for those who aren't aware of it, the girlfriend agreement follows Lexi and Damien, and on the surface, it's very much like a fun fake dating. He needs to get his parents off his back. She needs money. So they enter this fake dating arrangement where he pays her to pretend to be his girlfriend. Banter and chaos ensues. It's very
Yeah.
fun, but it's a lot more than that. It deals quite heavily with sort of the pitfalls and really, to be blunt, negative aspect of the US medical industry and healthcare over there. And
Yeah.
it came from a really personal place because, like Lexi in the book, my mom had cancer. And I was around the same age when I saw her at her worst, and I saw the sort of effects of the healthcare industry. My oldest brother is actually a cancer researcher, and he's 10 years older than me. And I remember the sort of first peek behind the curtain I got into what the healthcare industry was like.
Mm,
I think I was around 15, and he said to me that my mom's cancer pills, just the ones she had at home, not the chemo she went to the hospital, but those pills alone cost something crazy like 15 grand a month. It was a lot.
oh my
And for me
God.
at that time, like I couldn't fathom that. And we were in
Mm,
the fortunate position that my dad had a really good job and his insurance covered it. But there are so many people who don't have that luxury.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
especially when we were seeing what was happening with COVID, it was
Mm,
just it was a story that was always in me, and I just really needed to put it down.
yeah. Yeah. Of
And
course.
yeah, so that's sort of how it all came about, and just seeing as I researched the industry as well, seeing where certain funding went. And it's I mean, I'm
Yeah.
fortunate now to live in the UK. It's not perfect. We do have the NHS again, not perfect, but I can't imagine being in the situation that some people I personally know have been
Yeah.
in. And so it was just something I really wanted to shine a light on. And I found, as a reader and consumer of media, the times stories have stayed with me the most have either been ones that I went in preemptively knowing it was going to be dark, it was going to be, intense, or it was a comedy that ended up having a really meaningful message behind it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you weren't always expecting it. And a lot of people have said that about my book. So I just really wanted to make it more than just a rom-com. So that's
Yeah.
long story short,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
sort
No,
of
it's
inspired
really
me to do
good.
it.
Yeah, that's amazing, beautiful story. Like, it's really given you an insight into
Yeah.
obviously the meaningful aspect, which is so important. Like, it's it's important to shine a light on these horrible, dark times.
It's tough because, like, I didn't wanna put it in the blurb. There is a contents warning at the beginning that warns it deals with all these issues, sort of like financial instability and anxiety and grief and
Yeah.
all these things. But I think with the packaging, I just really wanted to make people feel like they would go in and it would be like a warm and funny story.
Mm,
And, and as well, I've found personally, there have been so many books and movies about cancer over the years, right? But it's
yeah. Yeah.
always about the person with cancer, and that is obviously a
Yeah.
terrible situation for anyone to be in. But I personally had yet to see a story that was really focused more on the people on the periphery and how
Mm,
they're affected as well, because I've been there.
yeah.
I've been in that
Yeah.
situation. And so as much as the stories about the US healthcare industry and how, to be frank, messed up it is.
Mm,
It's also so much about how grief affects people differently. And I
yeah.
think for a lot of people, they maybe haven't seen a story that lets them see them that side of
Mm,
themselves.
yeah. Yeah.
Because it's something we don't really talk about in society,
No.
especially men. It's like they're not allowed to show grief, they're not allowed to be vulnerable. And so it was just all sort of different things that I really wanted to shine a light on,
Yeah.
because I personally hadn't really seen it, and it was a story that I felt was necessary to tell.
Yeah, no, definitely. And grief, like you say, like everyone goes through, even not even just like grieving someone, but grieving change or grieving like,
Absolutely.
an unexpected thing. It's something that we all go through, but not necessarily like comfort each other about. And I mean, it's very relatable, but it's obviously not something everyone wants to talk about. So the fact that your book invites people to be in a warm, comforting space is so like really nice to people. And obviously it's good that you have that warning.
Yeah.
Otherwise, but at the same time, it's really nice that you've blended those two things together, because I think that is actually like really, really important.
Yeah.
And especially in relationships as well, like you go through all these challenges, hurdles, and unexpected things happening, but no one really talks about that. So it'll be really interesting to see how that.
Well, I think as well that, because I know personally, as someone who has lost a family member to cancer, if I see that there's like a movie about that or a book, I tend to avoid them
Yeah,
because
of
it's
course.
just some like a headspace I don't personally want to be put in, especially because a lot of times those stories end up with the person passing
Yeah.
away.
Sad.
Um,
Yeah.
but by putting it in a story that ends positively, that has so much like humor in it, it doesn't soften the message at all, but I
No.
think it makes readers feel more comfortable going into that subject matter. And things like with, the US healthcare industry, people are aware of it, people talk about it,
Mm.
but it's like this thing that it's just the way it is. So I kind of feel
Yeah.
like if people talked more about, well, it shouldn't be like that, we should be actively trying to change it.
Yeah.
People who have the means should be actively trying to step in and do something. Then, I mean, you have Mark Cuban in the US, who he is exactly the perfect picture of someone who has stepped in and is trying to use his wealth to make positive changes in
Mm.
that industry. But so often there's so many things that we see that we complain about, we get angry about, we feel it's in like the injustice of it, but then it's like, oh well, on to the next talking point. And so I
Yeah.
just feel like if more people sort of acknowledged that this isn't okay, that it does need to change, and even if the starting point of that is fiction, then at least it's a jumping off
Yeah.
point from somewhere. You know what I mean?
Well, everything comes from just people speaking about it. So the more it's more in the know, and even if it is like hidden in a book or in a love story, like it's still gonna be on people's minds, and it's still gonna hopefully resonate with people and get them speaking. Your packaging and your merchandise and everything, it really plays into the whole romantasy and like your university type style, the Conwick U series, sorry. How did you go around like coming up with the ideas for that and the way making it look?
So I'm actually a graphic designer. I actually work in publishing by day as a cover designer. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, so I have a bit of insider knowledge into genre trends and all that. And because this is at its core a rom-com, it was so
Yeah,
important that it look like that, even though it has the deeper messages. Because I think something can
yeah.
be a romantic comedy and still be about more than
Mhm.
just that.
Yeah,
And so I obviously there's loads of great covers out there, and but I wanted it to look like something that would easily fit into that genre while
yeah,
still
yeah.
kind of standing on its own. And I'm
Mhm.
really fortunate that one of my best friends is an amazing illustrator. So she illustrated Lexi and Damien for the cover, and then I put the rest of it
Yeah,
together. And I had this idea of, I really wanted it to be like pastel colors, so it would feel kind of soft and fun, and it because the main trope you're selling it as, if it's fake dating, people expect it to be sort of banter and
yeah,
chaos and hijinks, you know what I mean? So I
yeah,
really
yeah.
wanted that to the packaging to reflect that. And it sounds like, I don't want to make it sound like I wanted to trick people into picking it up thinking it would be lighthearted, and then it's not, because it is absolutely very lighthearted and fun. But I also didn't want it to, like you said, if it looks too dark or it looks like it might have dark topics in it, then people might shy away from it instinctively
Yeah,
just on the packaging. And because so much of the romance is very funny and very lighthearted, and they're it's very enemies to lovers, so they really, really, you know, have a lot of back and forths that are just really funny in the story. So I really focused on that with the packaging. And as a graphic designer, I know how important branding is. So it was really important to me that absolutely everything I put out looked cohesive. So I
yeah.
maintained the color scheme. I just really made sure everything I did utilized the similar sort of, whether it was like little icons or like backgrounds or just the colors, the fonts. I really just
Mhm.
did my best to tie it all together. So whenever
Yeah.
someone would see it, it would be instantly recognizable.
I think you
So
did a really good
thank you.
job of that, because
Thank you.
I could tell across all the products, because this is what I find really important, is that when you write a book, it's really important to have a whole brand around it. Like, what are you trying to
Absolutely.
build? This like world, the characters, and I think the way you've showcased that, not just only in your book, and obviously just with all the other things as well, like the merchandise, the tops, you got tote bags as well,
Yeah.
and things like that all marries into the whole university theme. And I think that's something that people don't always think about, is how can I bring my book and make it more than just
Absolutely.
the book itself, like the story. How can I bring, because people relate to the characters, people relate to the themes, so they want to be immersed in that world. And I can tell that was really important for you, for bringing that to life. Is there any more kind of decisions or any plans moving forward with your story? I know you talked about a second part, or
So, well, on the merch side of it, I kind of said to myself, like, even if at the beginning no one's buying it, I want it there for the one person who might. And so I looked
yeah.
at one thing I looked a lot at was actually I Googled like US college merch. And I looked at like if I went, because it's been a while since I went to college. So I can like remember the
Yeah.
sweatshirts and stuff. But I was like, what else did we have? So I really wanted to try and emulate what a college student would be able to go into their school store and get, whether it was like a hat or a tote bag with the logo.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I made a whole school mascot. It's never once
I
mentioned in the
love
book.
that.
But I'm like, I'm gonna make
Yeah.
a mascot. I'm gonna make like a tagline for the school. It's in Latin and everything. I'm like, I'm gonna have it there. Maybe I'll mention it at some point. If I don't, it's still just making it feel. For me, a lot of it was making it feel as real as possible, like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
real place, because it's obviously not. But
It
yeah,
could be.
yeah, it could be. um, so when I was writing the story, when I first started writing it back during COVID, it was just me kind of like word vomiting onto a page this idea. And then as it built, I was like, I don't want it to be a one-off, because as someone who has been writing for many years under another pen name, I know how important it is to have sell-through. And but at the same
Mhm.
time, having just come off two back-to-back trilogies, I was like, I don't want to write
Yeah,
another trilogy. I want to write a beautiful standalone that is just all wrapped
yeah.
up. But I
Yeah.
wanted the potential to still have that sell through. And I've seen a lot of success in recent years from authors I know who do the interconnected standalones. So it's a series in essence, but each book is its own story, but you have
Yeah.
the potential for cameos. And so people get to see those characters they fell in love with in previous books. And when I was writing the girlfriend agreement, her friends, Ronnie and Andy, Ronnie in particular, just took a had a mind of her own basically, and I was just like, there's no way people won't want her story. And sure enough,
Yeah.
loads of people are like, give us Ronnie's story. So she is next, and then Andy will get her story, and then I have plans for a spin-off series that starts with Andy's sister, who is younger at this point. She's only in high school, but that would be set in the UK, because I actually while I initially went to university in the US, I transferred and finished my degree in the UK. So the Conwick itself is a mix of the two schools I went to,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
the school I went to in London was all very rich Europeans. So I saw a review that made me laugh a little bit because she said how unrealistic the school was because it was just rich people. And I'm like, I went to that school. The one in London, it was all rich kids. I was the scholarship student. So, well, I get it, but they do exist. So I kind
Mhm.
of took that school and wrapped it in the aesthetic packaging of the school I initially went to in New England. So that's the plan. I have Ronnie and Andy's stories plotted. I'm starting to write Ronnie's now. And I kind of figure I'm just going to keep it going for as long as there are characters that appear and want
Yeah.
and I get ideas for stories. And I'm sure I'll write unrelated rom-coms of their own at some point. But for now, I'm enjoying being in this world.
That's
And
Yeah, that's really good. I think that's the main thing is that if
yeah,
you enjoy it and if you're bringing your own personal self to the story, it just adds that different dimension. So I think just live in the world as long as you like feel
yeah.
happy to.
I've read a lot of books where I sometimes felt like the secondary characters were only sort of there as the odd pop in, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean. And there wasn't really much to them beyond that. And I'd be like, who are these people? Why are they important to the story? And I always have found when I'm writing that the characters tend to take on a mind of their own anyways. But you want the world to feel as real as possible, and you're not alone in the world, especially if you're writing
Mhm.
first person, which is what I tend to do. The people around you are as real as you are. And so, I
Mhm.
mean, one thing that people have said about my rom-com is how long it is, and I know I know it's like super long, but it was so important to me that the world feel like they're in it, that
Yeah.
every aspect of it feel real, and that they're like, wow, these characters, they're just like jumping off the page, or wow, there's like so much growth here. And it's, that is just something that personally as an author, that's always what I've focused on more. For me, it's like all about the
Mhm.
characters. I just
Yeah.
really love giving them all sort of their own motivations, giving them all sort of their own personalities. I mean, I end up having like conversations in my head anyways when I'm like thinking about them. So I'm like, they end up creating themselves half the time.
Yeah, but I love that. I love that. And like, it's so, it makes it more like realistic, like you
Yeah.
say, and more authentic. And people in your life obviously do become sometimes a bit more background characters. But do you ever have it like where you have a conversation with a friend, you haven't seen each other for a while, and you catch up, and it's like you hear all of their backstory, and it's like it makes you think, oh, what if I knew about their point of view this whole time? That's kind of how I see like box sets or series and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. Obviously, you have those points of connection, which is where you write about your relationship. So I love those stories where it flips between like the boy's point of view and then the girl's
Well,
point of
well,
view
that's what
and
I did with the girlfriend agreement, and part of why it is so long is because we get both, not Ronnie, sorry, both Lexi and Damien's POVs throughout the whole book, and they both have very substantial arcs of their own on top of the fake
yeah.
relationship and ultimate, relationship arc, and a lot of that was because I felt that if we only had the one perspective, then there would be so much about that other character that we just wouldn't really grasp. And especially
Yeah.
because most of the time rom-coms are from, I mean, I can't think of one where it's just from a male perspective.
Yeah.
I think they're always
Yeah.
from either female or dual. But
Yeah.
if we didn't get Damien's perspective, I fear for what people would think of him.
Yeah, of course, of course. I think that's the thing though,
Yeah.
because you don't know what's going on in their brain or how they process things. I think you often get misunderstood, like, well, the character gets misunderstood for like, why are they doing that? Like,
I
why
mean,
why
he
would they
he's
say that?
pretty
But
he's pretty misunderstood even with his his
oh, yeah.
perspective. But he's an interesting character. He was good fun to write. But yeah, I just feel like by the end people wouldn't fall for him as much as they do if we
Yeah.
hadn't seen his side of things and why he is the way he is. And it just, I think it's also nice to see the female character from the male's perspective as well. Because at the end of the day, women read romance for the romance, and half of
Yeah.
that's the man or whoever else is in
Yeah.
the relationship. And so you want to see, especially if you're identifying with the main character, you want to
Mm.
see how the other character perceives them. Because what wouldn't we love to see, like inside our partner's brains, to see what they think of
Yeah.
us? And
Yeah, so
how
true.
lovely would you feel if you could just hear their inner
Oh,
thoughts one day? You know what I mean? So we
yeah,
get
yeah,
the
yeah, of course.
opportunity for that with
Oh,
books.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's so beautiful. Like it, I don't think it could be any more romantic than hearing, obviously, hopefully it's all good things, but hearing obviously their
Exactly.
inner thoughts. But yeah, that's been amazing insights into your journey in anything and everything. Is there anything more you want to say about your writing process or like what's worked for you and what's been challenging?
So I'm actually like severely ADHD, and I only found out like a year ago.
Yeah.
um I've known I'm also dyslexic and have OCD. There's just a bunch of stuff going on up there, which I put a lot of into Lexi's character, just to kind of show what my brain's like on a daily basis. But I always kind of put down my, I don't want to say struggles, but struggles with writing, down to being dyslexic, down to, I can never remember the name for it, but I have the version of thought where you don't have a voice, it's just pictures. So I've always been
Okay.
like, I have
Yeah.
to sort of, I see things really clearly because I've had a lot of comments
Mhm.
throughout the last God, I think it's been nearly like 15 years now that I've been publishing books. I've got a lot of comments that are like, oh, it plays out like a movie. I'm like, that's because I'm watching it. Like, that's all I'm seeing.
That's so cool. Yeah, yeah,
So I kind of first have to translate that into words and then shove it through the very annoying dyslexia and hope that what comes out makes sense.
yeah.
And it wasn't until sort of like a year ago that I found out I was like really, really struggling with a lot of things. My memory was getting worse. It was just like all these things. And I went to the doctor and they were like, because I had two separate people ask me like if I had ADHD or was on the spectrum or something. I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't know. I'm like, I have OCD and dyslexia. I know that much because I got diagnosed as a teenager, but went to the doctor and sure enough. And so obviously I had to sort of reassess because I'd be writing a chapter and then I'd be like, I can't think of this word. And so I'd just leave it for like weeks because I'm like, I can't progress because I don't know what I want to say. I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I had to, once I sort of had this diagnosis, I was like, okay, well, I need to start looking at this differently and figure out something, or else it's just going to take me 800 years to write every single book. And one thing that I always kind of struggled with is I would edit as I write instead of just throwing it on
Yeah.
the page. And that's the
Writing.
OCD in me because I would feel like it needs to be
Yeah.
perfect before I can move on. And I'm like, no, and then I'd get like distracted and that would be its own,
Mm.
mess. And I am not being paid to promote this, but I'm just putting this thing has been like a lifesaver. So it's called a free write. I
Okay.
don't know if you've heard of one of these before, but
No.
it's basically this like little device that all you can see is a tiny screen, and it
Oh,
doesn't let
okay.
you, like, you can backspace, but you can't scroll up. You have to just kind of
Okay.
keep going.
Just keep going.
And
Wow.
I figured, I'm like, I just need to get something that will help me. And I got that. And ever since then, I'm just putting out words and I'm like, I'll deal with it later. It's probably a mess, but half the time I go and read it and I'm like, hey, it's actually all right. Like what, like why am I stressing myself out? So I now use, and ever since I got that, I was able to like fly through finishing my book. So it had been sat on my computer literally since 2020, and I would occasionally pick it up and work on a chapter or two. And I think I got up through like chapter 10, chapter 12-ish. And then I picked it up last year and I was like, I really finally want to put this book out. And I got one of these and I finished it by, I think, March. So it was just a complete lifesaver. But aside from that, which I love, um, I can't So you've probably heard of like pantsers and plotters. I am
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
pantser. My first ever book that I published back in like, oh God, I think it was like 2014 maybe. Um, I just kind of word vomited on the page. I winged the whole thing. And then I got to the end and I'm like, oh, I can't tell the whole story in one book. This is going to have to be two books. And so then I wrote the
Yeah,
next one. I was like, oh, I can't tell this in two books. It has to be
it's
three
gonna have to
books.
be 3.
But
Yeah.
because I hadn't planned it all out, there were things that
Mm,
I then had to go back because I ended up plotting out book 3. And that was sort of when I found out I need to plot. I need to
yeah,
outline. I need to sort of have a plan in advance. And ever since I started doing in-depth outlines, it's made such a difference because once I have the full story in front of me, it's just a matter
yeah,
of throwing it on the page and then fixing it up.
yeah.
So yeah, that was a really long-winded explanation to say
No,
that
no,
I
no,
plot
it's
and I use
good.
a tiny writing device.
No, 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 it's really good though.
Yeah.
It's good to hear like how you've battled through, struggles, because I mean, I find it hard to sometimes you get bombarded with all these different things, tasks, and things pop up and it's hard to focus on one thing. So that device sounds like a lifesaver, and I feel like I would love that.
Well, I would
Just to be
I
able
would
to,
find sometimes that I would be like, I'd have my Word document open and I'd be like, right, what's that word? And next thing I know, I've been staring at the wall for 10 minutes, not thinking about anything. And I'm like, whoa, like I need to figure out something else here because I'll be 85 by the time I finish this book if I don't figure out a
yeah,
different
yeah,
method here. So yeah, so that's been really great because it only lets you see like a few lines at a time and you're more focused on just like writing then. So I
yeah.
what I'll do is I'll have like my laptop with the outline open and then I just
Okay.
go for it and I'm like I'm not going to worry if it's like not fleshed out. I'm just going to get down whatever I can think about even if I'm being repetitive with the words, I can figure it out later. Just write something
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And I think it was forcing myself to do that and I thought it would be really hard because like I said, I do have a tendency to self-edit, but I found that once I kind of got past that, it it felt really kind of freeing in a way because I wasn't tiring my mind out so much either.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, because it's allowing yourself to have that freedom to
Yeah.
just, the permission to just write whatever
Right.
you want to write. And I think staying with that flow helps you to, you know, go in directions you probably wouldn't have thought to go in if you stuck by, oh, what does this word mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It would have halted you. So yeah, I mean, I've never heard of it before. I'm sure like maybe our audience knows about it, and
I
it'll
think
be
there's a
interesting
lot
to
of
see.
writers out there that have definitely heard of them because that's how I found out about it was in an author group. And I had seen them a couple years ago. And I can't even remember where exactly I saw it. And I thought, oh, that's cool looking. But I was kind of initially put off by the price tag because they are quite expensive.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I got to a point where I was, like I said, I was really struggling last year and I was just really upset because it had been like 2 years since I'd put out a book. And I was just, I'm like, I need to write something, but I'm really, really, really struggling.
yeah.
And that I'm honestly, I'm still baffled at how it helps so much with what my brain is like, but it has. So hopefully it will keep helping and it's not just a fluke.
Yeah, I'm sure like that's the main thing, is finding what works for you at the end
Yeah.
of the day. Everyone's different, everyone works differently. So it's amazing that you found that.
Thing I do want to say just really quick
Yeah,
is that
yeah, yeah, go for it.
Book Vault's been amazing because it's been so nice having that opportunity as a self-published author to be able to put out fancy editions and they've been such a hit with people.
Yeah.
So being able to
Oh,
do that, it's been awesome. So that I
yeah.
contribute a lot of how well it's done so far to that.
Oh, thank you so much. How long have you been with Book Vault, and how has Book Vault like helped you write your books, or has there been anything
Um,
in particular?
so definitely a good number of years because my other pen name I do have the bespoke editions up on there and I have like the direct sales set up to my other website. So I already knew preemptively when I was setting up this pen name and doing this book that I'm going to use Bookful, and especially because you guys brought out like edges and everything. I was like, I'm going to make like the most beautiful edition possible. Um, so I think, well, as I mentioned to you before, Tom specifically has been a huge help. Every time I've had an issue, it's ultimately been resolved. And I really can't say enough good things about the quality. Like every time I get the books in, it's so beautiful. I mean, I remember when I got my first ever published book, like a proof in the post. And I was like, oh, it's so lovely to hold in my hands. The quality's a bit crap, but because, I mean, this was like 15 years ago with it was like an Amazon proof or something like that. And with print on demand, people are always like, oh, it's not as good as what you'd get in a bookstore with like a print run. And that's changing. That is changing. And
Yeah.
largely thanks to what you guys are doing. So
Mm.
kudos.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, that's our goal. We want to
Yeah.
make print on demand like the best quality
Yeah.
and bring out these things that, authors want. Like people want to make beautiful books, and hopefully we can carry on helping authors make that. And we really appreciate you being a loyal customer, and yeah, we're so happy to see that it's worked out for you, and it can work out for so many other authors if they
Definitely.
just, yeah, put your ideas on. And I really like booktok because print on demand means that you have the freedom to create whatever you wish. You can do a single copy and not have the stress of, oh, what if it doesn't work out? Because you can try again or try something different, or yeah, create
Exactly.
something really
Or
unique.
having like a big initial financial outlay. Because I've done print runs
Yeah.
before through other
Yeah.
printers. I did a Kickstarter a couple years back and used CPI in the UK for
Mhm.
that. And they were great. But it's so nerve-wracking spending so much money up front and being
Yeah.
like, what if there's issues? What if
What
something
if,
didn't
yeah.
print right and they won't replace it? So when you have access to something like being able to print a single fancy copy,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
it will be a bit more, but you're making it's accessibility at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
what's the point
Yeah.
of all these improvements in technology if we can't make things more accessible?
Mhm.
So I think that
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
the main selling point really is
I feel like a lot of people don't realize it's an option. So bringing that to light, hopefully we can bring it out there and show people that this is possible.
definitely.
But yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and yeah, good luck to you with all your books, and I can't wait to see what you come out with in the future.
Thank you.